Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to a really exciting video. Hi guys, today we are back with an original tag video. Here's the backstory of it. Basically, I see everyone doing the end of the year book tag, but it really isn't the end of the year book tag. The tag is amazing, I love the questions, but at the same time, it's just regarding the books you want to get to by the end of the year. It's not really a wrap up of your year like a lot of people feel like it is before they actually delve into the questions. So people kind of wait to post it in December, but really it's a tag that you need to do by like October, November sort of time. So I thought I would fill the void of people who want to do an end of the year book tag that is actually regarding the end of the year and wrapping up your books and your stats for the year. This tag is called, drumroll, the yearly Read-flection book tag, and it's all about wrapping up your stats, wrapping up all the books you've read over the year, goals that you set yourself at the beginning of the year, where you're at with them now, and setting new goals ready for the new year. So it's very much an end of the year book tag, not trying to use the original creator's name for their own end of the year book tag, but it's my interpretation of what an end of the year book tag should be, because it really is wrapping up your stats for the end of the year. Obviously I'm doing this video really early, but that is purely for the fact that I can get the word out that I've created this tag in case any of you out there want to do it. If you do it and you like this tag, make sure you leave me links and comment on this video whether you've done it or not, or whether you're interested in it. I would really appreciate the support, but I am aware that there's still a whole month left of the year of books that won't be featured in this video. I'll still be doing the regular best books of the year and wrapping up my stats in lots of different videos in lots of different ways. I just wanted to get this tag video out in the open, tell you guys my idea, tell you this secret I've been holding for about a month now while I've been planning out the tag, so it gives you lots of time to do it if you so wish nearer the end of the year. So without further ado, let's hop into the yearly Read-flection tag. Now the first question is a pretty standard question, and that is, what are some of the standout books you've read this year? I'm not going to go into too much depth on any of these questions. I just want to give you a feel of like how to answer them and give you a little bit of a sneak peek on my reading stats for the year. So the top books that I've read this year, I split them into two categories. Books that I've raved about across the entire year on my channel, books that you guys will probably be able to predict. If you pause this video now and leave a comment down below, you'll probably be able to predict these books. I'll give you a second to do so. Pause. And then the second category are books I don't really talk about a lot on my channel but are still some of my favourites of the year. So I'm going to give you a very quick overview of all these books, and then obviously you guys can answer the question on your own tag. The books that you'll probably be able to guess are some of my favourites. One is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This featured in the best books of 2021 so far video that I did back in July, and it's still hitting one of my top spots, but it is no longer the top spot because the top spot of books I've read so far this year goes to A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I absolutely adored this book. This is definitely one of my favourite books of the year. And then we have another predictable answer, and that is Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean, my first 5-star of 2021 that I gave in March. And then another book is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, which I really enjoyed as well. Definitely one of the best books I've read so far this year, and it just means a lot to me because it's kind of the first time I spoke to Rhiannon and Cerys, Rhiannon from Welsh Reader and Cerys from Cerys's Corner, and Rhiannon just had a nice time discussing it over Instagram, and it's the first time I properly spoke to her, and it kind of started our friendship, so this book means a lot to me as well. And then the books I haven't really had much time to talk about because I read them in the latter half of the year. The first one is We Are Not Broken by George M. Johnson, another brilliant non-fiction memoir from George M. Johnson about their lives growing up black and queer in a minority community. A book I don't talk about like at all that I really enjoyed and gave like a really good 4-star is Normal People by Sally Rooney. The perfect book for me. Is a book where nothing happens, there's no plot, and it's all about character. This book hit the spot for me and I really enjoyed it. I haven't read any more Sally Rooney this year, but it is definitely a favourite book of mine. And then we have The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, a book that I really enjoyed, gave a 4.5 stars, but I haven't really spoken about, but everyone knows what this book is about, and I was actually kind of scared due to the hype to actually read this. And then I read it and I realised what the hype was about, and it was totally worth it, and I absolutely loved it. Another favourite of the year is The Beach Cafe by Lucy Diamond, and this got a 4.5 stars as well. However, I've really come to understand my love of it recently, having read the 2 novellas of this series in November. If you haven't seen my November wrap-up, I'll link it up above and down below for you guys. But it really gave me a fuller understanding, more character development reading those novellas, and it really made me appreciate this book. So this one has hit my top books of the year. Another book I really don't talk about is This Is My America by Kim Johnson, a book about death row and a daughter trying to get her father out of death row after being wrongly accused. Really enjoyed this book, thought it was incredible. No one talks about it, and I didn't even talk about it, and I definitely think it's one of my favourite books of the year, having looked over Goodreads at seeing all the books I've read, which is 85 of the day I'm filming, which is the 30th of November. So yeah, definitely recommend this book, and definitely one of the best books I've read this year. And the last book I'm going to shout out is Black Buck by Matea Ascaropour. It features in my first ever Rachel's Reading Rambles, which is crazy because I filmed it back in February, and I finally got around to reading it. I finally got a hardback, I finally got a signed edition, and I really enjoyed this book for what it was. It was a mix between self-help and fiction about a black employee working his way from the bottom of a company all the way up to the top, and it hits a lot about racism in the workplace, and I thought it was brilliant. So if you haven't checked it out and it sounds interesting, I highly recommend it. So those are all the books I think that are standouts for me this year, and that is question number 1. Question number 2 is, what books do you wish you hadn't wasted your time reading this year? So aka your worst books of the year. Books that didn't really impact your reading year in a positive light. What are some of the books kind of that you wish you just hadn't spent time reading? And once again, I will go through these quickly because I'll be making entire videos of my best books, worst books, all the fun stats videos at the end of the year. I just wanted to get this tag video up for you guys. All these answers to these questions are like sneak peeks for you, and then you can get deeper delve into all my stats in my reading year later on once I've finished all my December reading, but obviously I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So the books I wish I hadn't wasted my time reading are Until Friday Night by Abby Glines. This was an ebook on my iBooks account, one that I'd had for years. When I downloaded it, I did want to read it, and it finally came up on a randomizer TBR prompt. So I read it and I gave it like a 2 stars, didn't really enjoy it, didn't impact me in any way. I could have probably saved those 3 days not reading it, and I probably could have read like a 5 star. Another one I wish I didn't waste my time reading is The Truants by Kate Weinberg, a book my boyfriend picked out on me as a challenge for me to read. Didn't love this book. Didn't even rate it because I just skimmed the audiobook just to get it read because it was a prompt for my Magical Hopathon readathon. A similar one for that is You Have a Match by Emery Lord, a book that I was really looking forward to and made my anticipated releases of 2021. But once again, I listened to this as an audiobook and I just couldn't keep up with it. I just didn't pay attention, and a book that I forgot that I read until I looked over my Goodreads, and a book that I definitely didn't need to waste my time reading. And then the last one is Almost Adults by Ali Petoni, a book I read right at the beginning of the year, and I can't actually believe it was this year that I read it. I got recommended to read it based on my love of Olive. Unfortunately, Olive is like god tier, and Almost Adults I absolutely hated that book. Definitely the worst book I've read so far this year. I don't think anything's going to come close to it with 1 month left. So that is question 2 of the tag. All these questions will be linked down below if you want to do the tag yourself. Question 3 are, what books surprised you the most this year? Books that you read, you didn't think you were gonna love them, but they did, and I have one answer for that, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer, a YA fantasy book. You guys know me, I do not read fantasy very often, but when I do, it has to really grasp me, and A Curse So Dark and Lonely 100% did. I read a 450-page book in 1 day. I sat on the sofa with a hot water bottle, a cozy blanket. It was one of the books I read for my Magical Hopathon readathon, and I just had a whale of a time reading it, and I just didn't expect it to read it that much because the prompt that book fulfilled was to read a book outside your typical genre. So I just had no expectations going into it, and it pleasantly surprised me, and I cannot wait to continue the series in 2022. So that is question number 3. Question number 4 is, what book do you wish you got round to this year but you just didn't get time? And for me, I would have loved to have continued my reread of I Heart Series by Lindsay Kell a little bit more. I did reread the first 2 in the series, I Heart New York and I Heart Hollywood, but I wish I got to at least I Heart Paris and I Heart London, but time just got away from me and there were other books that I kind of prioritised, so unfortunately that wasn't the case, but I do hope to continue rereading the series next year. A book that kept recurring on my TBRs and a book that kept drawing me in during the summer was Shipped by Angie Hockman, and I just never got around to it, but it sounds right up my alley, about 2 rival co-workers who end up on the same cruise ship to try and promote a cruise to the Galapagos Islands. and it just sounds right up my alley. Enemies to lovers, confined space. It sounded right up my alley, and I wanted to read it during the summer, but I just didn't get around to it. I really wish I could have got around to it on a night like this by Lindsay Kelk. Lindsay Kelk is one of my favourite authors, and she had a brand new book out in November. Unfortunately, I just couldn't afford to pre-order it due to Christmas right around the corner, and I prioritised Walking on Sunshine by Giovanna Fletcher pre-order rather than Lindsay Kelk's. So I hope I can get to on a night like this when it comes out in paperback next year. And then the last book I wish I got to in 2021, this list could be a mile long, but these are just like some of the top ones I thought of, and that's How to Kill Your Family. This book has been going around on booktube for so long now, and every time I go into a bookstore I see that book and it just sounds so good that I just really want to read it. I just didn't get around to it. So that is question number 4. The next couple of questions are to wrap up your book related memories of the year. The 5th question is, what has been your biggest bookish accomplishment this year? And for me, it definitely has to be the fact that I hosted a month-long readathon by myself. If you're new to my channel and you have no idea what I'm talking about, I hosted a Walt Disney World themed readathon in October to celebrate Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary. It was a month long. You hopped between all the parks. There were attractions, snacks and show prompts. I put so much work into that readathon, and I designed logos, I designed maps, I designed icons. I got my boyfriend to help me out a little bit, so it wasn't like a one-man team, but it definitely during the month of October was just me hosting it, and the response I got from it, the love I got from it, I just really, really appreciate you all for taking part and supporting me in that month. But just the fact that I was able to create something that so many people loved and enjoyed and had a good time doing is such an accomplishment for me, because I never kind of intended to host a readathon. It just kind of came to me one day, and I had this urge, I had to do this. Something inside me was like, I need to do this, and I just had a whale of a time doing it and hosting it and reading books for it and creating content regarding it, and it's definitely one of my biggest bookish accomplishments that I've achieved this year. Question number 6 on the same lines is, what are your top bookish memories this year? And I can't answer this question without first of all saying I met some of my booktube besties this year back in the summer in London. Chloe from Chloe Reads Books, Rhiannon from The Welsh Reader and Emily from Kathleen Reads. We all kind of came together in London and went book shopping, and it is one of the highlights of the year. It was so nice to finally meet my online book friends in person. They're all just as lovely in person than they are on camera, and if you're not subscribed to any of them, I will link them down below. But that is definitely one of my top moments of this year. It was just so surreal to meet them person to person, face to face, and yeah, definitely one of my top memories of this year. Another one of the key moments is the fact that I reached 1,000 subscribers and I got monetized this year, which is a crazy goal that I didn't ever like set out for. Like, I started this booktube channel because we were in lockdown and I wanted people to talk to about books, and that's why I started this channel. And how far I've come in such a short space amount of time is unbelievable, and once again I appreciate you all for your support as I sit down on my bedroom floor talking to no one but a camera, but it feels like I'm talking to friends. So that is definitely another top bookish moment for me, is the fact that, like, I didn't start my channel this year, but I really got full swing ahead this year with creating content that I enjoy. I was kind of starting to kind of see the rewards come through and kind of see how my hard work was paying off. And yeah, it was just so nice to have that moment of hitting monetization. And the final thing I want to shout out, definitely made one of my top moments of the year regarding books, is I got my first ever book from a publisher. I emailed them on a whim just to kind of see if I could get it, and that was to request Laura Jane Williams' brand new book that came out this year, The Lucky Escape. I got an e-arc for it on NetGalley and I read it before it came out, and then one day randomly a book arrived on my doorstep and it had chocolate in it, it had a face mask in it, and it had The Lucky Escape. And it was from Avon Books, and that day was so special to me because it was the first time a publisher had sent me a book. I did request it, it wasn't unsolicited, but it still means the world to me and I'll cherish that book forever. It is literally just here. And yeah, I love this book. I love Laura Jane Williams as an author, so the fact that my first ever book sent from a publisher was for one of my favourite books and favourite authors was such a cool feeling, and yeah, I'll cherish this book forever. Question number 7 is, if you create bookish content, booktube, bookstagram, book blogging, book TikToking, book Twitter, whatever form of social media you create book content on, what is something that you're really proud that you created this year? And for me, I have 2 videos that come straight to mind. The first one is my announcement video for the Magical Hopathon. Not only is it one of my biggest accomplishments this year, but it is also a video that I am so proud of. Just the way that I edited it to make it as clear as possible, of what the readathon entails, because it was quite a complex readathon, having to go to each park and complete books before moving on to different parks. So I'm really proud of how I put that video together and how well I explained it all, and the love I got when I was premiering that video as well is just, yeah, definitely a video I'm really proud of. And the second one is my April TBR, where I played an Easter egg hunt with my boyfriend. That was such a fun video to do, and I went around my garden, I hunted for eggs, and inside the eggs were prompts. I'm definitely bringing that back next year in 2022 because it was just such a fun video. Hopefully we have just a nicer day than in 2021, but I'm definitely bringing it back. It was so much fun to film and everyone seemed to love it as well, which is always a good feeling when you spend so much time and effort planning and filming a video and you really enjoy doing it. When you see everyone else enjoying it too, warms my heart. So I love that video as well. If you haven't seen any of those videos and you want to check them out, I'll link them down below, but they are quite outdated now. And then the final few questions, because this is a 10-question book tag, are more about your goals and reflecting back on your year as a whole when it comes to reading. And question number 8, reflecting back over the year and looking at all your stats. Are you happy with them? What areas are you happy with? What areas can you improve on? This could be diversity, your physical TBR number, the genres that you read, arcs that you received and haven't read, book buying habit, any sort of thing that you can reflect on. It's time to discuss it here, so you can look at your spreadsheets that you've created across the year, see what you kind of want to improve on, what do you think you excelled in this year. This question is just kind of here so you can kind of discuss where you're at the end of the year regarding statistics. I did have a quick look at my reading tracker spreadsheet, but obviously it doesn't feature December's reads, so take this with a bit of pinch of salt, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how to answer this question. I've divided it up into 2 bullet points, an area that I'm happy with and an area that I want to improve on in 2022. The area I'm happy with is the amount of adult fiction that I read this year. One of my goals I set myself for 2021 was to read more adult fiction because I felt that YA was finally becoming a little too young for me. So I really wanted to prioritize adult fiction, and as my spreadsheet kind of suggests, I definitely did this with 53.4% of my books being adult, and that is only going to increase with my December reads because I think all of them, bar 3 that I have on my physical TBR, will be adult books. And I just finally feel like I'm connecting to characters that I'm reading about, whereas the last couple of years with YA, I was reading YA for the enjoyment, but I was never really feeling like I could relate to any of them. And that was because purely I'm in my mid-20s now and all these YA characters are 16, 17, 18, and I just can't relate to any of the decisions that they're making anymore. Although they're still fun to read and I love reading YA from time to time, it's so nice to be able to absorb yourself in a book and just feel so connected to a character because of how much you can relate to them. So I'm so glad that I was able to kind of keep up with that goal throughout the year and make sure that I was reading a lot of adult fiction. And then the one thing that I want to improve on, and I feel like no matter how much you do, you can always improve on this statistic, and I feel like it'll be kind of broad across the book community to kind of announce this year, and that is to keep reading diversely, whether that is religion, race, identity, like whatever it is. I want to keep reading diversely. I did really well in every month to make sure that I was very aware on what books I was picking to read each month, and I always tried my best to read as diversely as possible each month, and that definitely showed in my pie chart as I was going throughout the year. Unfortunately, the last couple of months I haven't been as focused on reading diversity because there's been a lot of books I want to read by the end of the year. All these Christmas books I want to read in my December TBR are from white authors. If you have any book recommendations that are Christmassy and festive that are written by diverse authors, let me know in the comments down below because I do want to broaden my horizon. I've just been falling off the track a little bit, but I do want to obviously hop back on it and do my best in 2022. My statistics are 64% white and roughly 35% non-white authors, and that is combining Black, Asian and Middle Eastern authors. I do want to increase that statistic. I always want to be improving on that, and I hope by 2022 that I can increase that number. So that is question number 8. Question number 9 is what goal you wish you focused more of your time on this year, and how could you possibly take that goal into the new year? The only one goal I didn't complete that I set myself out for this year was to read a non-fiction productivity book. But January 2021 Rachel is very different to December 2021 Rachel, and I'm glad I put that goal on there because it allowed me to branch out into reading any non-fiction. I'd kind of branched out a little bit in 2020 regarding non-fiction, but this year I really made it a goal to read 1 non-fiction a month, and I did that throughout most of the year. There are a few months that I didn't read a non-fiction, but most of the time I did, and I really enjoyed my time reading non-fiction this year, whether that was non-fiction memoirs, which is kind of like my main category, or like non-fiction life lesson-y books. For example, I read Philosophy by Elizabeth Day, which is all about how to turn your failures into successes, which I really, really enjoyed. So although when I set that goal out to read a non-fiction productivity book, I had one book in mind, and I never think it's a good idea to make your goals that restrictive in the fact that you have to do this certain thing, because I didn't do it, and I don't feel less accomplished for not doing it, because I'm glad of what that goal enabled me to do more broadly, which was to read more non-fiction rather than just that one productivity book. That productivity book that I did want to read was Working Hard or Hardly Working by Grace Beverley, and I am still interested in reading it, but I don't think it should have been a goal to read that one specific book. I feel like it should have just been to read more non-fiction or to read one non-fiction a month, which I definitely was able to achieve, apart from in December, because I'm not reading non-fiction in December, but you gotta forgive me because I'm reading all the Christmas books. So that is definitely one goal I kind of wish I'd focus more on. But then at the same time, am I feeling guilty for not completing it? No, because like I said, it enabled me to read more broadly in a non-fiction genre. And then the final question, question number 10 to wrap up this yearly Read-flection book tag, is make one or more goals you want to work on based on what you've just reflected on. So look back on all the 9 questions that you just answered, what you discussed, what you said, and can you make one goal based on what you've reflected on? And for me, I definitely can. I feel like you can always create goals to help you improve in your reading or in your personal life, etc. So kind of what is one goal that after reflecting on what you've just said, can you make to bring you into the new year? For me, I have 2. One that I can't really measure, but I want to focus on, and then one I can really measure. First one that I can't really measure, and I've spoken about it in my November wrap up, and that is the fact that I want less pressure on reading. And this sounds really bizarre, but there are 3 main elements in my life, reading life currently, that are quite structured. And one is the fact that after every single book I read, I rate it. Do I need to rate it? No, it's just something that has increased and become more prominent as the book community has grown into what it is today. You don't need to rate books once you finish them. It's just society telling you you have to. So I would love to kind of take that away from the pressure that I give myself when I'm reading. I feel like I read all these books and I feel so disappointed when I rate them lower than 4 stars, even if I still enjoy them, because people have this association with 3 stars that they're bad, and they're not. But if I just said I really enjoyed it, people will still take that recommendation on board, but they're not labeling it with a number. So that is definitely something I want to focus on. I've trialed it in November and I've really enjoyed it. Sometimes I do feel like rating a book, but I don't want every single book I read to have a rating if I don't feel like it needs it. So that's definitely one area I want to improve on when it comes to my structured reading goal. The second area I want to improve on is TBRs and the pressure kind of booktube and the book community have put around structured TBRs. TBRs were only ever invented, I feel like, within booktube because it was a popular video, and a lot of people love watching TBRs, but do they care about actually what you rated them and what you cared about them? No, they just care about what you're reading, and that doesn't really add up to me. So I want less structured reading regarding TBRs in 2022. I will still make TBRs, but they won't be the be-all and end-all. I won't only put 5 books on my TBR and say I have to read these, otherwise I get a punishment, and they may be fun for the viewers, but it takes the joy and fun out of a lot of people who make TBRs for the fun of it, because people feel like they need to have punishments if they don't finish their TBRs. But that's putting so much unneeded pressure on people to read books that they don't care about, or read books that they feel like they want to DNF, or read books that are putting them into a slump. And that's not the point of reading. I'm sorry, but it's not. So although I will be making TBRs and I would love to come back with a really fun TBR game in the new year, if I don't complete those books, there will be no punishments. There'll be no negative associations with not completing TBR games or TBRs in general in 2022, because I don't need that stress in my life. I really don't. Like, I'm a full-grown adult. I don't need to feel bad for DNFing books or reading books that weren't on my TBR because they weren't set. Do you know what I mean? And a third like subcategory within my structured reading goal in 2022 is to not feel so pressured to have to finish a book by the end of the month. And this is something that I have put pressure on myself, purely myself, and that is when I started booktube, or before that when I did book blogging. I felt like I had to have completed all the books that I read in the month by the end of the month so I could wrap up that month cleanly and not have any books carried over. However, As time has gone on, that pressure has got worse and worse because I'm reading more and more books. So by the end of the month, I would still have like 300 pages to read in a single day to make sure that book was finished by the end of the month. And that meant just not enjoying the book because I had to force myself through it as quickly as possible. It meant rushing the book, so I wasn't really paying attention to it, all for the sake of making sure I wrapped up that video nicely and wrapped up that month nicely. But that's just unneeded stress on my part, and I understand that this is all me, this is all in my own head, in the fact that I was putting that pressure on myself. Not a lot of people care about finishing books by the end of the month. It's definitely something that is kind of more a me problem, and I definitely want to work on it. For example, in November, I'm still reading The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary today, and it is the last day of the month, and I'm carrying it over to December. It feels a little wrong, but I really need to try and get out of that like weird mentality of having to finish books by the end of the month, because it's unnecessary stress I don't need. So those are the 3 subcategories within the I want a less structured reading year next year. Not pressuring myself to finish TBRs if I don't want to, not pressuring myself to finish books by the end of the month, and not rating books if I don't feel like they need rating. So those are the 3 subcategories within the big I don't want to have structured reading next year. And then the one goal I can kind of measure is making sure that my pie chart for my author identity is a lot more even in white authors and non-white authors, so Middle Eastern, Asian, Black, etc. In 2022, I did great progress from 2019 to 2020 and then to 2021. I've made improvements every single year and I want to keep that up. I am going to say I want my pie chart to look at least 50-50 by the end of 2022. I have always improved year on year. I can see that in the stats if I look back to 2019 when I properly started recording all my reading. But I want to obviously keep improving on that, and that is a goal that I'm massively focusing on next year. I actually quite like how Emma from Drinking by My Shelf does her statistics and her goals of 2022. She does a book trail, and every time that she completes a goal for a month, she puts a token on that trail, and each token then adds up, and then the end of the trail is to buy a book. And I think that's a really good way of making sure that you keep on track with your goals. So I might try and create something similar just so I stay on track with my 2022 goals. And on that note, those are the 10 questions of the yearly Read-flection book tag that I created for my own little head, because I wanted a tag that people can do at the end of the year that is actually wrapping up your year, rather than telling people what books they want to read by the end of the year. I wanted a wrapping up of a year book tag, and I couldn't see any out there, so I made my own. If someone has done something similar, let me know in the comments down below and I can credit them. But this was all from my own head. I just wanted one big video wrapping up all your stats, all your goals, reflecting on what you've read, etc, etc. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll leave all the questions down below so you can take them, and if you want to do this tag, you can plan them all out, etc. All the questions will be down below. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a massive thumbs up because I really appreciate your guys' support. Comment down below whether you are interested in doing this tag yourself, and if you do, make sure you tag me on social media or just tell me you've done it in the comments down below. And if you don't have a channel and you would still like to do these questions or let me know some of your answers, make sure you comment them down below. I would love to know what they are. And then make sure you subscribe to my channel as well, because there'll be a lot of videos coming out in December. I'm doing weekly reading vlogs again, and I've got 2 extra videos a week regarding end of year content, best books, worst books, 2022 goals, 2022 reading list, ranking all the new authors that I've read this year. There's so much fun content coming your way, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. And without further ado, I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.